Hey YouTube, welcome back to the channel. On today's episode of Garage Noise, we're going to straighten out this dent in this Ford tailgate. It's got a large dent on the top here, and it's also got a lot of little dings and nicks and chips in the paint. We're going to repair those, refinish this entire tailgate. So I'll give you some ideas on how you can get this dent out, some different techniques. We're also going to use a variety of different tools that you might be able to use at home. So first thing we need to do is to grind this down to bare metal. We need a good metal surface to weld to because we're going to use a stud welder and the slide hammer welder on this. So let's get after it and do a little bump and grind. So there's a lot of different ways to pull out a dent. In the olden days, we would take a drill, something like this. We would drill holes, and we would then take a slide hammer with a screw attached to it, screw it in those holes, and pull the dent out. But today we have better tools for this. We have welders, we have stud welders, slide hammer welders that can pull the dent out. Now you could go from the back side of this tailgate and push the dent out, and sometimes you have access, sometimes you don't. But in this case, I'm going to start off by using this stud welder. So this tool welds studs onto the low area of the dent, and then you use a slide hammer that locks into place over the stud, and you can slide hammer or pull the dent out. Now, in this particular case, it's not working very well on this dent, so I'm going to switch over to a different kind of puller, and that is this G90E slide hammer spot welder puller, whatever you want to call it. The tip of this tool welds onto a low area on the dent, and then you can slide hammer it out or pull it out. In this particular case, the truck is not here, so I had to lay the tailgate on the ground so I could get some leverage to pull this dent out. And if you haven't seen the video review of this tool, I will leave it at the end of this video. So check it out if it's something you're interested in. Okay, so we got it pulled out with the G90E dent puller. I had it set at 0.8 and it seemed to work pretty well. The metal's got to be really clean, but if you can see here, it's kind of hard to tell. It's pretty much pulled out. It just needs a thin coat of filler now, but most of that dent is gone. You know, it's got a few little low spots from the dent puller, but I'm gonna grind this smooth and we'll see what we have, and then we'll get ready for body filler. Okay, so now I'm going to take the G90E dent puller and we're going to get some of these low areas, try and do some finish work on this and get this just a little bit better before we apply the body filler. Here I mixed up some Rage Ultra body filler and we're going to put a thin coat over this. We'll sand it down. This will fill any of the little low areas, and then we'll put another skim coat over it and straighten it out. Okay, so let's take a look at this Ford tailgate. We've got this dent pulled out here and we put a little bit of filler in it. We're going to block this smooth, straight, and then we'll probably have to add a little bit more filler, but we're going to look at the rest of it. It's got a couple dings here. You can see those. Yeah, you can see it in the light there. We're going to address that, this dent here, and then we're going to remove the emblems, these, and then reinstall them after we paint. There's also a little ding here we're going to take care of. So these little dings here, we can 80 grit them and then just a skim coat of filler. Now, one of these, we might try and pull one of these out, or we may just fill them. This is a budget repair. So let's go ahead and strip these emblems off. We'll sand this all down. I'll sand over these dents with some 80 grit on the orbital sander. Fill those. Okay, let's go ahead and lay a little bit of filler in these smaller dents, and then we'll block them out with 80 grit sandpaper, either on the block or the orbital sander. Okay, now we've got some body filler laid in here. Let's go ahead and block this. I'm going to start out with the orbital inline sander, or the orbital sander, but the straight one. And we're going to sand this with that first, kind of knock down the rough stuff, and then we'll go to hand blocking it, but we're going to use 80 grit. Okay, so now I'm going to apply a thin coat of icing. Icing is a poly putty. It's good for filling any little low areas or any pinholes or scratches, deep scratches in the body filler. And then we'll sand most of this off, and then it should be ready for primer. Okay, now I'm just going to knock off the heavy stuff with the inline orbital sander, and we'll hand block it with 180 grit sandpaper. Okay, so now we're going to go over the entire tailgate with 600 grit sandpaper. We're going to go over the body filler with 320 grit sandpaper. Now, you don't want anything coarser than 320 grit scratches in your body filler when you prime it. Now I will sand over the primered areas with 320 grit. Get those smoothed out so there's no texture in that primer. And then we'll go over the entire tailgate with 600 grit, including the primer, as a finish sand before we paint. So I went ahead and put the first coat of paint on this tailgate. Now, as you can see, there are some areas I sanded here, and the problem was when I applied the first coat, I got some dust in the paint. So I took some 600 grit just by hand, and I smoothed that out with the 600 grit and got rid of that dust. So one thing you want to do is you always want to evaluate the panel after you put the first coat on, or any coat, and see if there's dust or anything that you need to take care of before you put the clear on. So when you're applying the paint, you want to do nice even passes. You want to be consistent with your distance away from the panel. You want to be parallel with the panel, so you want your spray pattern to be parallel with that panel. You need to overlap 75%, and I would put the first coat on as a dust coat and let it cure for 10 minutes, and then you can apply a heavier second coat. Okay, I'm going to put the heat lamp on it and let it cure for about 10 minutes. Okay, let's go ahead and put the first coat of clear on it. I've got my volume turned out, 2 turns out. I've got my spray pattern set wide open. You want to do consistent passes, overlapping 75%, about 4 to 5 inches away. I think I'm a little bit closer than that. I'm just doing one medium coat right now, and then we'll let it cure for 10 minutes and do a second coat. And I have the pressure set at 25 psi on my regulator. Okay, I'm going to apply the second coat of clear now. This is the flow coat. As you can see, I'm going a little bit slower. I'm putting it on a little bit heavier so it flows out nicely. I'm using a little bit more air pressure. I pumped it up to 29 psi for the air pressure. I am using a Valspar Euro Clear on this job with the Astro Pneumatic Euro Pro paint gun. And if you haven't seen the video on this Astro Pneumatic Euro Pro HE paint gun, check it out. I'll leave a link in the description, along with links to all the products I use and the tools. Okay, let's check out the finished product. And listen up, if you've enjoyed this video and you want to help out the channel, please like, subscribe, share the video, and hit the bell notification so you get all my future content. I appreciate you watching. I hope this video helps you build your skill and increase your knowledge. We'll see you next time.